Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel, and let's start off this video by just looking at this impeccable, beautiful image. Here we have history and the present, and looking at the shapes of these amazing mountains in Arizona, something quite weird occurs to me, is that these look really similar to tree stumps. That's right, we're talking about actual tree stumps. Arizona is just one example, there's many other places in the world. I'm sure you've seen other videos which talk about the actual giant tree stumps at some point in your life. If not, if this is the first time, look at this and compare. And doesn't it look a bit suspicious? Like, it looks like effectively back in the day there were gigantic tree stumps, or better said trees, which had a height of kilometers, and these trees were cut down by an advanced civilization for whatever purpose, obviously harvesting, for example. So they harvested planet Earth, and now whatever we have left on Earth is actually just a fraction of the actual biomass that was thousands of years ago. Again, this is just one example, and this ties in really well with the next photo, which is something also quite suspicious. You see, this photo was taken back in 1924 in the Hawaiian island of Maui. A human figure gives a clear idea of the size of the green giant growing in the narrow gorge of the slopes of the extinct Haleakala volcano. This was taken by National Geographic in 1924. Now, very important, this is where things are getting really weird. We are told that CO2, the increase of CO2, is going to destroy vegetation, right, life on Earth. However, back in the day, we know for a fact, like thousands of years ago, the amount of CO2 was higher, and the biomass in terms of vegetation was also much higher. Plants next to volcanoes, where there's been a massive explosion of CO2 in nature and in the earth, we see that these plants are just gigantic, absolutely big, because they are getting a lot of source of CO2 next to them, and this actually promotes their growth. So effectively, what's happening here? What's happening is that the actual higher amount of CO2 is promoting plant growth, and this is actually a proof of what is the reality of the past of humanity and how we are being misled in today's age about the truth behind the CO2, global warming, all these things. These are all tied in together, and history, like I always say, never lies, and this is a perfect example of what happens when you have CO2, vast amount of CO2 near a volcano, and the sprawling crazy vegetation which emerges in that area. It just doesn't add up, does it? It just looks a bit suspicious. Now, moving on to another very interesting piece of history, we are looking now at the Leonardo da Vinci Leicester Codex. Now, the Leicester Codex is a notebook of natural scientific notes and reflections made by Leonardo da Vinci himself in Milan between 1506 and 1510. The manuscript consists of 18 sheets of paper written on both sides that make a 72-page notebook. Leonardo wrote this on his own mirror writing, so you can only read them with the help of a mirror. Again, quite weird. Now, the person who has this right now is, by the way, Bill Gates. Bill Gates purchased this codex for $30.8 million. Just imagine, right? What kind of secrets does this have inside that guy had to pay so much to obtain the secrets? Now, this is where it gets really interesting. Each chapter of the codex begins with an appeal to future generations and a compelling explanation that the world is a single living organism. According to Leonardo da Vinci, his beliefs, air is the soul of the planet, and the surface of the earth is the body, and the water is the blood, so everything is a connected system. Now, again, looking back at the past, again, it just makes so much sense. We have the giant tree stumps, that we have the mountains are now left, which are petrified, the giant petrified tree stumps, which tell a completely different story, that the past, this living organism was effectively harvested by... And the writings from Leonardo da Vinci again kind of corroborate this very interesting fact about the earth being a being and having the roots from it, and the roots of the earth, the massive mountain of trees, were basically cut down because of that reason. But again, this is one of those very interesting factors in our past, and it just kind of doesn't go well with the official history, official narrative, and this is why this is being ignored, right? And moving on, guys, to another very, very interesting piece of history. We're looking at the Piri Reis map. Okay, now in its projections, the Piri Reis map clearly corresponds to the image which would only be obtainable from space by positioning the flying vehicle that takes the picture exactly over the Giza plateau, known for its megalithic pyramids. Okay, in other words, guys, those who made the original map, alright, which came down to Piri Reis, in the original or the copies, must have been able to not only circumnavigate the oceans but also travel in actual space on higher orbit. They were actually probably able to, see that because they were the actual architects of the pyramids of Giza and knew about their technical purposes, and there we go. So again, like, this is the only explanation. So effectively the Piri Reis himself, he didn't draw the map. He received this map from someone, okay, that gave him this particular knowledge and helped him get this view. Guys, this is crazy. This basically confirms something very important. The actual pyramids and the location of them and the location of the most important relevant historical figures in terms of architecture are actually linked together, and there was a society or a culture who actually was able to create this and draw maps of this, and they were passed down to these people, maybe by luck, or maybe because just a pure luck because he found the map somewhere hidden, or because there was people from back in the day, the original architects, who gave him this information and then left. Okay, this, guys, is much more plausible, alright, than many other official versions which just do not have any logical explanation apart from the fact that, well, it was just because of the knowledge he had. But how do you get this knowledge? Because it's just unheard of, right? Especially back in the day. So yeah, I mean, things are getting quite interesting here, because the more you look into history, the more you look into the past and the society of that time, you see that there have been some very interesting combinations between people who know things and the discoveries of monuments, which are just completely opposite of the official version. And finally, guys, let's finish off with this very nice photo. But this photo shows something quite unusual. These are fireplaces which are powered by atmospheric electricity, or the ether, alright? These fireplaces do not burn with wood, but a spherical metal sheet is installed, heated by atmospherical electricity, as in the ether, and radiates heat into the room. From such fireplaces, there's always heat and there's no soot in the room. Such fireplaces were placed in palaces, theaters, institutions, churches before the 19th century, and they were decorated very nicely. And again, there's no traces of an actual chimney going to the top, and there's no traces of the actual wood burning and residue of the carbon. There's nothing like that, because they were just using the vibration of the air energy with the metal plates to generate the actual heat. To work with such a fireplace on the high roof of the building must be made appropriately electrical circuits connected with the spires receivers of an atmospheric electricity, combined with spherical capacitors made on a high artistic level. And this, guys, is exactly the lost technology of the past. Some of you guys know about Tartaria, the ancient kingdom. This, guys, is again a lost technology of that era. They had the energy atmospheric vibrators which would receive the energy from the ether and convert it into literally free heat. Believe it or not, trust it or not, this is documented, and this is shown in lots of different pictures and designs from the past. However, you can take your own conclusion to this, you can make your own idea and effectively have your own say, but to be honest, guys, this is why I personally believe that this was happening back in the day, and the proof we have is quite compelling. So guys, that's it for today's video. As always, I shall see you later in the next upload.